today's show, we have an amazing gentleman who I've come to know and personally admire. His name is Ronnie Rich, and he's the CEO and founder of Fit Banker. Now, I don't want to steal the thunder and tell you all about that. I'm really, really passionate about wellness and energy, mindfulness, and things like that. And it was such an honor to finally meet someone on the ground here in Zambia, not just doing the fitness and the wellness and actually being a role model, but he's actually built a great business that's international around the same. So Ronnie, thank you very, very much, my friend, for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's been absolutely something I've been dying to do on the Flava TV and radio show for a while. Just getting people that I think I even know a little bit better, because it's one thing to kind of see who's a celebrity in Zambia and say, yeah, I want that guy on my show for ratings or whatever, but it's another thing to actually meet someone who's living by example, doing their thing, and just kind of been like watching you, I stalk you big time, but just watching your community, already interacting with some of the people on the ground here and seeing the testimonials and the transformations, particularly on the weight loss and things like that. That's been really amazing. So to have someone like you on the show, I think for me, it's just really, authenticates the show, and I want to like really get people to meet you, see what you do. And also, maybe, if it's okay with you, go into a bit more on the personal journey of what's behind the camera, of who you are, and what it really takes to be someone that's living by example. I hope that's okay.
Sure, and thank you for having me, and also thank you to Flava for having us on the show as well.
Absolutely. So let's dive straight in. So let's maybe start with the Fit Banker side, because I think that's something that people in Zambia need to know about, and wherever this show goes, of course. So what is Fit Banker, and how did you come up with that name, and where did it start?
All right, awesome. So happy to share. Fit Banker is an organization that coaches, educates, inspires, and empowers people to take on and live a healthy lifestyle. And our mission is we exist to educate and empower people to discover this lifestyle education that lasts a lifetime, and we're on a mission to transform 1 billion lives. Now, when you say Fit Banker, a quick play on the word is about empowering people to bank on their fitness. So someone that takes on their well-being is a fit banker, someone that's banking on their fitness, because other people bank on them too, right? So who you are, there are people that bank on you being fit. There are people that bank on you keeping your optimal well-being, so that tomorrow, you waking up, there are people that bank on that. That's what we want people to get the context of them and as to why their health matters. But the name Fit Banker is also play on my journey. I was a banker, I was a fat banker with JP Morgan. With JP Morgan. I was vice president there in London. And I'm in the financial capital of the world. I started my career in Zambia, but I was about 6+ years with JP Morgan. And it was a great journey there. It was great from a career perspective, career progression, the hours that I put in and the reward that I got. But my body was advising me otherwise. My body started to pile on. I became 108 kg.
Wow. What are you now, by the way? Just to get
I'm now down to 77, 78 kilos.
Wow.
So I lost about 32 kilos in the journey, which is 70 pounds. I'd reached 40 to 41 inch waist size, and I've come down to 32 inch waist size.
Wow.
But that turnaround moment came from a setback, a health scare. When I was newly married and focused on my career, and we were about to buy a home and settle down in London, we were pregnant, we were 3 months pregnant, and we were excited and looking forward to this journey. And while we were pregnant and ready to celebrate, we had a miscarriage. And we had a miscarriage, and it was a setback. It was a crushing moment for my wife Ambika and for me. And while I was physically able to do a lot of stuff, like working the long hours, I was not emotionally resilient. And I found out the hard way. And so from that event, I got heart palpitations. And those heart palpitations carried on through the night, and the following day I ended up in hospital. And it was lying there in the hospital that I got very clear for myself that I could have all these material assets, I could have great savings, I could have a great title, I could have a great salary, but it meant nothing in that moment lying in a hospital bed. My wife is sat there next to me, and I knew she was concerned, and she said to me she's concerned that she doesn't want to wake up tomorrow having lost another one. And it was that moment where we've lost our baby, but it was the birth of my interest in well-being, in fitness, in nutrition. And I began to study and research this field from an ex-finance person going into the world of biology and human sciences. And a year later, Fit Banker was born. So, we've been around now for 8 years. We coach and educate and empower clients in about 27 or 28 countries. We run treks in the UK. We run an annual leadership summit on Mount Kilimanjaro. We run a number of courses that contribute to optimizing human performance.
That's an amazing journey. I'll just maybe take you back. That's a really nice introduction that you shared. Maybe we'll go back to the JP Morgan days. Do you feel that, because I think you and I share a similar background of being in the corporate space and getting into business and some life-changing incidences that kind of just had you do a 180. But what do you think JP Morgan, as you said, might have contributed to some of the success principles you maybe transferred into your business? Was there anything that maybe, I don't know, could be work ethic or the discipline to follow through? Because I know the deadlines for you guys are crazy, as they were in some of the institutions I worked for. But I found that tenacity to get projects done on time really still, translated. But were there any positives from the JP Morgan journey?
I think the JP Morgan journey and my prior world in finance with KPMG and Deloitte, right? That whole professional world of exposure to finances. I think the greatest thing it did to me, first of all, is a global exposure, opening my mind to seeing the way things work on a global platform. And what does a multinational company look like? How do they do leadership? How do they build teams? How do they reward people? How do they make people show up every day and stay true to and committed to their role, right? And we've taken some of those tools and psychology from there, because I would show up every day to my work, and the contract might say 9 to 5, but I might show up 8:30, 9 a.m., 8 a.m., and I'd be there till 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., sometimes midnight, and sometimes you go there for over 24 hours, right?
Sure.
Very, very seldom. They don't encourage that, but that was a decision that we, the individual, the employee, ends up making. And what I found that kept me committed to that role was I was inspired by other people in the organization. So there was great mentorship programs, there were great leaders in the organization, and that inspiration and seeing the potential of where I can scale up to in my journey as a banker. And as a vice president, there was pretty senior role, and still there was much more to grow on a global scale within the organization. And so first the inspiration. Number two was the training that was provided to people, the taking care of people. That was really great. I wish they did a bit more around well-being. That's why we exist today. If FitBanker existed when I was with JP Morgan, I probably still would have been with them now. And I'd have been a healthy banker while working there. And the third thing is it's a great implementation structure. So it's a great environment. They're great workplaces. There's great teammates around you. There's great access to tools and resources. What it's given to me is coming into our business, which is a plus and a minus, with the big business of professional thinking, right?
Because what do you mean by that, professional thinking?
So how we recruit, what we need to do to make commercial decisions, how we engage new consultants or contractors, how we scout various people that we want to join our team, or scout suppliers or contractors. What is it we go through to verify working with external partners to our business? Now, on one sense, that's great, that professional macro level thinking and understanding how it works. On the other side, when you're a startup, we're not that resource rich, right? And so sometimes trying to do it the big corporate way is not the right way as a startup. Sometimes as a startup, what I learned, I had to relearn, I had to re-educate myself to get into the world of entrepreneurship again, is you sometimes just got to take a punt. You might not have all the agreements in place, all the black and white contracts in place. You might not have be able to get 3 pro forma invoices before you choose somebody, and you just got to use your gut instinct, follow somebody and say, I'm going to take a punt on this guy. And however it turns out, you got to work with turning that person around if it doesn't meet your standard.
No, and I'm hearing you about the inspiration and getting that corporate thinking. It's really, really good when you're well resourced. So I guess I'll get to the turning point in a second. But why do you think then, with all that training, that organizations, and not to isolate JP Morgan, but just I think in general, they don't really put an emphasis on wellness and well-being, and obviously physically, you're saying about, your waistline change and everything like that. So how, with all that resourcing and education, don't they put an emphasis or treat it as an asset for their staff? What do you think?
I think really we exist to put that message out there that well-being is the new corporate culture, and well-being ought to be the new corporate culture. And if you think about an entity, they put in CCTV cameras, security to protect the building. That was a time when there was a lot of Occupy Wall Street and Occupy the Square Mile in London, and people were concerned about protesters and riots, and they would, protect the buildings and the assets. And they would also protect the employees in terms of, if it's late or early you need to come in, you can have access to this private car hire company that will drive you there. In that sense, you were taken care of. There was great security, there was great intelligence that took care from physical protection. But the real assets, and they protected the client assets, they protected the wealth and the reserves and the stocks of their clients, whether they were digitally stored or recorded, in whichever means they were protected. But the real asset, I think, of a company, which we want C-level staff and companies to see, is that your true assets are your employees. Now, the way they took care, or the way the old corporate takes care, still today some of them are operating under the old corporate mindset, takes care of their employees, is they want to provide them at work with all the pleasures and reduction of pain. What do I mean by that? They will bring the Starbucks, they'll bring the Costa, they'll bring the muffins, they'll bring the beers tray around at 3 or 4 p.m. on certain days. They will address what makes pleasure available at work. The removal and the avoidance of pain. They will have the right chairs and seats for you to sit on. They will have a therapist in the building if you need to go and see them. They will sometimes have some of them provide barbers that come in and do your haircut. You can get your manicure and pedicure done there if you wanted to at work. So those kinds of things were being done at work to keep the employee at work longer. So they don't lose 1 hour, 1.5 hours of them traveling to go for a haircut. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the employee thinks, oh, my company loves me, they're taking care of me, which is they're providing me with pleasure and avoidance of pain. We believe that the better way to get longer term commitment and buy-in from your employees is get the employee connected to their purpose. And purpose is actually one of our pillars of well-being. Right? Now, how do you get employees connected to purpose? Which is, I was somebody that is creative, that is naturally a leader, a great communicator, a people's person, but I was in an analytical role. And that's a great way to frustrate an employee. That impacts my emotional and mental well-being, and then it impacts my biology and my physical well-being. If they could find out how to match employees with their natural talents, their natural strengths, closer to a role that matches their personality type, i.e. alignment with their purpose, you'll find those people will 10x and double down the results. Sure. So I found that whenever I got into a sales meeting, even though they brought me as the analytical accounting guy, finance guy, operations guy, we would close that client after I have a conversation with them. The salespeople get the credit, but I would have loved to be there in that sales role, because that's the entrepreneurial side of me, right? Today I'm in something where I'm operating aligned with my purpose. And so it doesn't impact my well-being because every day is joyous.
I like that. Yeah, I think you've shared a lot, and I think we're going to do maybe 2 or 3 more takes because there's so many pieces to that puzzle. And I'll continue with the first introduction journey you said, because you were going through this wellness revolution after an emotional breakdown. And maybe we can expand that a little bit. So, a lot of us, and this is really good I got you on this show, because as you know, my story, and we were having coffee just recently talking about our journeys.
Yeah.
It took a personal, for lack of a better word, disaster to wake me up to myself, to start questioning, who am I, why am I, and how did I end up being a commercial lawyer? Is that even something I really wanted to do?
Yeah.
And if I'm not that person, then it was very scary to transition. So what was it like for you in that period? You said it took you about a year to set up FitBanker from the decision, and you started seeing some benefits of research and all this. But would you maybe share a little bit more about some of the challenges you may or may not have faced, you and Ambika, your wife, with the identity change? Because was there any challenges being from a banker to a FitBanker?
Absolutely. I will say this. I always thought entrepreneurship is for everyone. And I do believe entrepreneurship is trainable, but you have to be really coachable. You have to be ready to transform. And to transform means you have to completely break down the existing and the current model. You have to make it obsolete and put a new model in its place. And
how do you do that?
you have to do that to your own personality.
Okay.
You have to break your own identity. And what happens is when you're 12, 13, 14, 15 years in a corporate career, you've started to affirm and tell yourself that you are a certain type of person.
True.
But your body will not lie to you. Your well-being will not lie to you. Your emotional state will not lie to you. It will daily be communicating to you that this is a wrong fit. And there are people right now in their jobs, they're sat in their jobs, and they're like, this is so not my potential. That's the first hint or signal that you're going to be getting, which is, or put another way, I remember when we were expecting, and I just had a moment of visualization. I visualized my son being 3 years old, and him asking to me, Daddy, what is it you do? And when I, in that visualization, laid out my job description, it so didn't give me pride.
Wow.
Right? It didn't give me pride, and it was not what I wanted etched on my tombstone, which is I do the valuation and the accounting of other billionaires' money. I'd rather be the billionaire. Do you get what I'm saying? When I was in those board meetings, I was the one telling the people who had the money what their numbers were. I'd rather be the people that were in the other seats of that boardroom meeting. Right? So the first thing is you've got to really look for that hint that, hang on, this is not me fulfilling and living up to my potential. Next thing is whatever happened to me, that setback, and anything that happens to people in job, whether they feel that they're being bullied or victimized or unfairly treated, or your company wound down or recession came or whatever happened, and you lose your job, you go through a wobbly period, you go through a questioning period, the first thing you have to get as a leader, your personal leadership, is life didn't happen to you. Life happened for you. So there are 4 tiers of leadership we talk about where life happens to you. And if you can really take a grander view of that, you'll find out that you rewrite that story, life happened for you. And so we lost our baby for us. Today we have 2 amazing young boys.
Love your kids.
Right? Which is lovely that we did that, and that was a function of taking on our health. If that loss didn't happen, we may not have had our 2 lovely boys that we have today. Life goes from to you to for you. From for you, it happens through you. When you start to become a conduit to pay forward to others, an opportunity for them to go through that transformation. As a coach, which is what we do. And then life happening through you, life happens as you. This is when you really build brand. This is when you can take a step back and you've created something, an entity, an organization, products, systems, services that can run based on a team that's aligned with your mission, that's aligned with your values, that's aligned with your principles. And then you can take a step away and head off to a mountain and allow the business to run. That's the 4th tier of leadership.
I like that. I actually never heard those 4 in the sequence, but I remember we're talking for you. So maybe just to unpack that connected to the transition you went through. At what point do you feel, or what do you think stops people going from life happening to me to life happening for me? Because this one I think is quite common in the mainstreams. People talk about these. We'll get to these other 2 maybe in another interview, but I do remember, and I also know as a product of our environments, a lot of us are almost encouraged to blame the government, blame God, blame our families. I was dropped on the head as a kid. They picked the other sibling was the favorite one. And this is it's happening to me, right? Why is it then difficult, and why do you think there's a majority of people still stuck in the to me before they can transition to the for me? And what advice would you give someone to make that transition to the next level?
There's a guy called Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn says that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
And everybody that sat there in banking or whatever career or role that you're in, right? More often than not, you're turning to the cubicle next to you, the guy next to you, to say, hey mate, I think we should quit our jobs and go and do this. And that becomes your mate at work, right? But guess what? The 2 of you sat there are consulting the wrong people. You 2 are not the best advisors, because you are the existing mindset that's keeping you exactly where you are. You're both in your comfort zone. So firstly, people have to acknowledge and identify that they're in the comfort zone. If they go through each year where nothing is confronting them, nothing is scaring them, nothing is growing them, nothing is challenging them, they don't face fear, they've stopped growing, they're in their comfort zone. And we are a function, we say, of our environment and our community. Your environment and your community dictate the quality and the consistency of your habits, right? So if I'm always surrounded by risk-averse people, very analytical people, people that love job security, and I speak to them about entrepreneurial ideas, I will not find a solution from them. So the first thing I started to do was to step away from that group. Well, I didn't ditch my friends. I started to get into the world of personal development and coaching. And I went into these programs. I remember when I went into them, I would hear somebody on stage and he's speaking and sharing about what's possible, and I see him work with somebody and liberate somebody from some childhood trauma that they've been holding on to, or some past-based context that's been limiting their potential and keeping them safe and wrapped up. When I started to see that was possible in the personal development world, and I started to get into it, the more I immersed myself into it, I got new environment and I got new community. Suddenly I'm speaking to people, or people are getting on stage and they're sharing about, this is my vision and this is the business I'm doing and I want to do that. And in the room there might be millionaires and billionaires sat there. And we are the average of those 5 people we surround ourselves with most. So the more I leapt into the risk takers, the visionaries, the entrepreneurs, the people that pursued their passion and purpose, then I started to find my own direction. I started to find the shells that were limiting me and breaking through them.
That's really, really good advice. And like I said, we're going to touch on those other 2 subjects because I think they're huge topics in themselves. Where you know, things are happening through you, and the last one was
what happens through you happens as you.
As you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Once you've established brand,
yes, it's happening as you.
Once Aaron Mashano is known as the Aaron Mashano, right? Then people will operate in honor of you. Today we have Mandela Day.
Yes.
Right? Nelson Mandela Day is celebrated in his absence.
Yes. Yes.
He was
KK as well.
Exactly. We celebrate their day. They're long gone. They're physically gone, but they're not gone. They're very much alive, right? We refer to them. We refer to their mottos. We refer to their mantras. We quote them. We live by their values and principles. We acknowledge them for the freedom that they gave us.
Absolutely.
Right? That is as you.
Nice, nice. And I think we're going to do a whole series on that because that's very, very exciting. And I think a lot of people are maybe not even aware that's possible. So I think we'll cover that. So let's just maybe stick at these 2 levels, but maybe take it into the Fit Banker context now. So you mentioned you're in 26 countries, coaching people all over the world. Where would you say, or what do you say you're most proud of in terms of results? Now let's talk about accomplishments that Fit Banker are impacting. I know you got your billion people focus. Where would you say are some of the accomplishments that you're very proud of currently?
Some of the accomplishments I'm very proud of are in the health space and also in the leadership side when we take people up Mount Kilimanjaro. But you know, we coach people on 6 pillars of well-being. There's physical activity and exercise, which most of the world thinks that's the only thing for health and fitness. That is only about 10% of your day. Then there is nutrition, right, which is about 30 to 40%. Then there is your sleep. Right? Your sleep is a big part of your well-being. If you're sleeping 4, 5, or 6 hours only, and you're training effectively and eating right, you'll be hormonally out of balance because your body's trying to cope from lack of recovery.
I do that.
Right? So those 3 are the first 3. Then the 4th one is what we call the mind-body connection. So there is emotion like anger, like envy, like resentment, small things that trigger you when you're driving on the road. Those emotions convert to the body and they become embodied, right? That
like
emotion is stored in, psychosomatic. So, but things like even childhood trauma, right? So you go through a rough childhood, you might go through some abuse from parenting, from schoolmates, from teachers, and your young mind has not yet processed it and liberated yourself out of there. Your body holds on to that memory and stores it because there's a part of our nervous system called the fight or flight state. And what it thinks is that when I was 9 years old, I got bullied, I got picked on, I got beaten in the schoolyard. We're going through life and we see this company or that corporate are doing better than us. We're constantly under threat that they're going to take us over. Or we're about to enter into business partnership, a really good potential business partner that could 10x our business. And you're like, the last time I trusted somebody, I burnt my fingers. Never doing partnerships again.
Zambians, you can't. Indians.
Exactly. You start to stereotype because you've not liberated yourself from a decision a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old has made, and we're still in that trap. So the 4th pillar is that emotions convert into the body, and you need to let go of those emotions.
We're going to do a show on that.
The 5th pillar is what I call your social connection, your relatedness. So there's a book called Ikigai, about identifying your purpose. There's a book and study called of the Blue Zones. The Blue Zones are the 7 top regions of the world which has the highest concentration of centenarians, which means people living over 100 years.
Healthy,
And as they study those people, they try to look at what was common about them. What was it? Was it their nutrition? Was it their jobs? Was it their food? And they found that the most common denominator they all had was they had social connection. So you'd find somebody who his role would go in the morning and open his store, but he would trust that neighbor to go sort the milk out. He would trust that person to take care of the kids in the school pickup. They had an interdependency on each other in those small communities, right? So there's 7 such regions in the world where they study this, and social connection and the role of relationships is a big contribution to our well-being. Anyone that's gone through a divorce, what we call a toxic relationship, a hard phase or a breakdown, you'll see how your well-being gets impacted. You don't get up and feel like going for a run.
Yeah.
You know, you might lie in. It impacts your emotional and mental state.
Personally, yeah.
Right? So social connection, relation. And the 6th pillar is choosing a livelihood that's aligned with your authentic nature and your purpose. So this is where we say purpose as a big part of well-being. Because if you find that thing that you're planted in this universe to do, not a day feels like work. It's play every day.
That's true.
Like I'm playing today.
That's true.
Yeah? And I'm happy to play with you guys.
Yeah. I can feel it. I love that. So in terms of these pillars, you're saying in terms of accomplishment, all your students or people go through that journey with you, right?
Yeah, so we coach them over 90 days. We deliver weekly webinars. We have weekly accountability calls. They get assigned a coach and a team.
Nice.
And what we've done is we've taken people through this journey. Of course, weight loss is I promise you it's a very easy game. It's the easiest thing that we do. It's for people to lose weight is very easy.
Within 90 days.
But we've had people who've joined our program. Like my 70-year-old dad has been on medication for about 30 years. We don't know when he started. He can't remember when he started. But he's been on cholesterol statins, high BP medication. He lost his father to diabetes, right? We never saw our granddad. And he was on that same trajectory. At 70, he takes on his health. Within 4.5 months, he loses 14.5 kg. Today, he's 30 kilos lighter. But within 4.5 months, he started to have some side effects of the medication he was on, the ACE inhibitors. And they were unnecessarily lowering his heart rate. And it started to cause some side effects. So went in for a checkup and the doctor said, you need to get off your medication. So he, at 71, got off his medication. He's 6 years off medication, cholesterol statins, high BP medication. We regularly check his blood pressure. At 76, he's the oldest Zambian to attempt Mount Kilimanjaro.
I remember that.
We've taken him up to day 3 of the mountain, 3,720 meter altitude. So in terms of the pride, it's the health benefits that we've done. So that is just one example, but we've had people who are diabetic. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle caused disease.
True.
If it's lifestyle caused and you tweak the lifestyle, the dis-ease falls away. And so we've had people reverse a medication that diabetics get on called metformin. They've come off it or reduced their dose. People who are on insulin have either come off it or reduced their dose. We don't tell them to. We ask them to go and see their doctor and do a review. And the medical doctor that put them on the medication asks them to come off it. Similarly, we've had mums who've struggled with fertility and they have not been allowed to do, say, IVF because they're over a certain BMI. One really proud moment for me was a lady that was refused for 5 years to do IVF, does our program, loses about 11, 12 kg, gets approved to do the IVF process. Her and her husband tried for those 5 years naturally. They have a firstborn through IVF, and they were told they could never conceive naturally. They just said it's not biologically possible for you guys to conceive naturally. She does our program. She gets approved to go on the IVF process, and as she gets to go on the IVF process, they wanted one more. Firstly, they got twins. When the twins were 5 months old, I went to meet her and interview her like this in Lusaka, and unknown to her at the time during the interview, because they kept doing what they do after hours, she was 3 months pregnant with baby number 4.
Wow.
So she went from 1 baby to 4 babies,
That's
and the 4th one was the first one that was natural.
conceived, yeah.
In a window of 20 months. I often joke with her faster than a BMW. So
That's good.
yeah,
I like
that's been one of my
like
highlights of FitBanker, that we've given people the opportunity to experience life, to become parents, to live longer. That's some of what we're most proud of.
And I think like bring them back to center, which is a natural, almost way we're optimized to be.
Yeah, we are designed to be optimal,
Yeah.
but we are being introduced, marketed and sold and conditioned by media and by so many other platforms and influencers to consume foodstuffs that make us suboptimal, that deteriorate our well-being.
Absolutely. No, I think we're going to have to wrap up because we're going to have so many sections to come in. But I've just got 2 more kind of questions before I wrap up. I'd love people to reach you, and I'd love people to also know maybe some challenges that you might have coming up. So in case they want to engage, the best place to engage anything is to have something to work towards, right?
Yeah.
So what are you actually currently working on that you might want to maybe share with us that's exciting coming up? that if people want to also reach you on, and where do they find you? On
Yeah,
social media?
awesome. Well, first of all, I'm social. So I'm very social and active on
Extremely
Instagram,
good, yeah.
right? So please look out for fitbanker.co
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can go to our website, fitbanker.com. And also, what I'm really committed to, first of all, is I want to make our education on health mainstream. We would love to get this into corporates. That's a big focus of us. So any corporates that are listening to this, any decision makers, any HR people, any employee and well-being people that are listening to this, it's your responsibility to really look out for opportunities where you can optimize employee well-being. And we've cracked it. We are 8 years in the game and we have altered human behavior, right? We've reached close to 1,000 people globally who have done an immersive, intense 90 days training program. So we would love to get into corporates. The next thing is I'm really committed to leadership, and I'm committed to leadership, very passionate about leadership in Africa, and of course right now specifically in Zambia, right? And so annually we run a leadership summit on Mount Kilimanjaro. We've taken a 9-year-old girl to summit, and we have also taken, the eldest we've taken is a 67-year-old guy. And my dad at 76 reached halfway up the mountain. But it's not just a hike up a mountain. It's not an adventure. It's a leadership program that happens to be run at high altitude. So if you're someone that really wants to interrupt the monotony of your life, you want to discover high altitude attitude, then I invite you to connect with us and look out for our next leadership summit. Our next leadership summit is scheduled for mid-2023. It's close to sold out, so we may have to open a new one, which we will run either end of 2023 or 2024. But we're looking for people from the professional world, we're looking for entrepreneurs to join, we're looking for schools that might want a whole year batch to join us. We have the capacity to take a multitude of people, but that experience, you just don't come down being the same person.
That's true.
Right? So that's what we're committed to, is well-being, becoming the standard across corporates, schools, government institutions, and developing leadership.
Brilliant, brilliant. So just in case someone's kind of watching this and wants to tap in and read a message, I see you're very active on, say, Instagram.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the most active platform you're on, or is it now TikTok? I heard you've been doing some cool things all over the place.
Yeah. I am on all the platforms, but I would say I'm most active on Instagram. I think it's a great tool, and I think anybody watching this, it's also a great tool for you to express your passion, for you to be connected with people. The algorithm of Instagram is such that you can really get personal and intimate into another person's life. You can connect with celebrities, you can connect with your president, you can connect with Hollywood or Bollywood stars or whatever it is. You can connect with Zambian artists and musicians, which I'm connected to so many of them through that platform that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to connect with.
Yeah, no, I love it. All right, a couple of final questions here, because there's just so many. I mean, firstly, I wanted to acknowledge you, Ronnie.
Yeah. We need a 3-hour show, man.
We're going to do that. But you've been just a phenomenal, I would say, lighthouse in my experience. Because I do remember we both kind of came back, repatriated is the right word these days, to Zambia. I heard of you through a person who mutually, I was coaching on the entrepreneurship side, and she had just done a Fit Banker program with you, lost amazing weight. I think I can mention her later, she'll be on the show. But just the reputation of how people are saying you're committed, you're consistent, and you just got a really big heart for the Zambian people, and particularly want to see the leadership transform in this country. So from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to acknowledge you, not just as a brother, but as a role model that even I look up to, and say you and your, I like super couples, I keep saying that openly, but just seeing what you and your partner are able to do, and her on the relationship side, and we'll have her too on the show. It's just a breath of fresh air for us, and even I think for the diaspora people out there, one of our biggest fears is I've formed a network of these people we associate with, who are pioneering and open-minded. But where do we find them if we come home? And I just wanted to assure everyone that the people like Ronnie and his family made that jump. It's really exciting to know that now we can start developing a community here of positive and open-minded people. So thank you for being one of the big leaders in that space.
No, thank you. It's grateful to have met you on this journey. I hope we'll have many such conversations and interviews over the years till we have white hair and positions in government at some point as well.
Yes.
But yeah, on that point, I really want to encourage, especially the Zambian diaspora. It is a very common taboo mindset or thinking when we're overseas, thinking home will never change. Well, home will never change because you, the smartest, the genius, the brain box, is going and building another nation. Right? It's about time to come back home and start to build the nation where your roots are from. Build it, be that contribution, bring your talent, bring your passion to the people, begin to transform this organization. We have great policy changes. We have great leadership, I can say, for the next 9 or 10 years, right? And so, take advantage of this. This is a moment and a wave not to miss. And I really hope that we can be effective in making the difference. And I really hope that we will also find behavioral change amongst the institutions, government, policymakers, various services that are essential to economic growth, like financial services and legislation and so on, will really be on our side as entrepreneurs to really make a difference and grow and create opportunity for many more people.
Absolutely. No, I think so. And like I said, you're such a role model. And I think it's been so inspiring, even hearing people say, hey, you guys on the ground, we see what you're doing. Particularly even that post we did with the waste management. We'll talk about that in another show. So it's really exciting. And I think for some people, they just needed that nudge to say, well, these guys are doing it, so why can't we? And obviously, not just the diaspora, but the local people. And,
Absolutely.
We're going to get into another story of the people you're empowering in Kitwe alone, and how much you've got an open door policy with your health and working with the youth. So that's really inspiring. So two final questions. This one is more around just kind of, a cool way I like to kind of see what's really going on and keeping the motor going for some people. So let's imagine, for example, your time was up and the good universe was going to take you away. And before you went, they said, look, you got 5 minutes or less, a few seconds. Here's a pen and a paper. Please write down 3 truths, or 3 lessons that you'd like to leave, not just your 2 amazing boys, but future generations to come. What would be your 3 truths or your 3 lessons that you'd like to be remembered by?
3 truths or 3 lessons? You caught me now off guard. Let me think about 3 truths. I think the first truth is really getting the falseness and the temporalness of fear, right? Which is, fear is such an inhibitor of people's potential. And so one truth I want to say is, on a daily basis, on an annual basis, if you're not doing something that scares you, if you're not saying yes to something that confronts you, right, then you're not growing, right? So the first truth is to know that the things that you fear are false. More often than not, they're false, right? And learn to continually leap through them and see those opportunities. The next truth I would just say is that one of the greatest forces of really growing and being a contribution to people is a combination of trust and love. If you're truly committed to the betterment of humanity, you're going to learn to take a punt on people as you grow.
So true.
And take a punt on people. And if it doesn't work out, I'm now using your words. If it doesn't work out and you lose something, it's called tuition fees.
Yes, that's right.
It's called tuition
right.
fees.
Tuition
So I would just say that a second truth is trust and love. If that trust and love exists there, then don't make a big deal of tuition fees. Move on quickly. Just move on. The mind is designed to spend more time chasing somebody that crooked you out of $20,000, and that same amount of energy can create $200,000 or $2 million.
That's true.
Right.
That's so true.
That's the second truth. And the third truth I would just say is you've got to learn to get connected to your own truth, which is, we're in a world where society expects you to be a certain way, to operate a certain way, to dress a certain way, to live a certain way, to even be in an institution like a family, like a marriage, have a job or a car a certain way, is all completely false. It's all an illusion. You have to find what's true to you. Don't fit into the world's created jigsaw puzzle. You can't die living somebody else's life. You've got to live your own truth. So there is no reality called, by this age, you need to get married or be a job or get a billionaire, or that you have to stay married, or that you have to have kids, or anything of that sort. There is no real template of what success is and what society accepts. You have to know what your truth is. What is the one that you truly wholly accept? What is the one that gives you authentic power? That's the one you've got to own, and that's the one you've got to constantly be in pursuit of being able to live.
Those are some really powerful truths there. I really appreciate that. And
Thank
Ronnie,
you.
with that said, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Aaron.
Definitely
Thank you
gonna
so
get
much.
you back on the show, and we have to unpack those levels.
Awesome, and thank you, Flava.
Yeah. Thank you.